Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a secret that nobody's talking about. Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Sam.
And I'm Kylene, and today we actually have kind of a big deal. Like this started out to be a super simple video because for our frugal friendly foods, we're looking for all kinds of different ways to be able to feed your family for less money. As the food prices escalate, right, we're gonna have to get a little bit creative. Well, we did some cost comparison, and this video is actually devoted to Sam because you see these two bags right here. So I bought these a couple weeks ago, but I haven't had a chance to make the video. And Sam has been nagging me like every day to make this video because I don't usually buy this. I usually make all my stuff from scratch, right? But we did some calculations, and I have to share these calculations with you. So this bag of Krusteaz mix, it's a 10-pound bag, right? So at Costco, we bought it for $7.69. This is from Sam's Club, and it was $6.14. That, and they're complete mixes, right? Mm-hmm. And that means that they cost...
Add water.
Yeah, you just add water. 3 cents a pancake for a 4-inch pancake, right? Totally cool. So think about the possibilities. Talk about your college days, Sam.
Well, the reason that I was so excited about this stuff is very near and dear to my heart. Back in 2 years ago-ish, 2.5 years ago, when I first moved away and went to college on campus for the first time, I was a poor, starving college student, as one might expect, and I lived off of this stuff. Breakfast, you know, whenever I needed a snack, sometimes if I was just feeling it, I'd have pancakes and eggs for dinner because I didn't have money to like buy other nice foods. And so especially back then I was doing a lot of athletic type competition, and I was trying to eat simply, but also in a way that I was going to be able to fuel my body for the training that I was going through.
And it's interesting because this is a complete mix, so you only have to add water, but if you make it with milk and egg, then suddenly you've got a higher protein pancake, right? Yeah. But it's kind of a good basic thing. Now, I'm not a fan of white flour. Like, I don't usually feed my family a lot of white flour, do I? No. That's why it's such a treat for him. But in this video, so what we're gonna do is we are gonna show you how to make your own mix, which I'll talk a little bit, but it's actually more expensive to make your own mix. One of the reasons why I think it's good to make your own mix is because you control the ingredients that are in here, because there are a few ingredients in here that I'm not overly happy about. But quite frankly, well, okay, I'm not overly happy about the white flour, but that's what we'll be making. We'll be making the other one with. But we'll show you how to make your own mix and how to cook it. I'm also gonna show you how we make pancakes from our sourdough start, right? And so that's what we've got ahead for you. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you the best way to store pancake mix. Okay, before we get into the rest of it, there's something I forgot to show you. And this actually goes more with storing it, but I need you to see something. So back when I used to buy some of this, it didn't have all these little holes in it. Like if you look at this bag, the whole back of it has holes. So the shelf life for this is about 2 years. It says April of 2024. Mm-hmm. And so you've got a couple years on the shelf, just like this. But all these little holes mean that this bag is not going to be shelf stable for a really long time because you're going to get oxygen and moisture in and out of this bag. But the bag is pretty tough, and so far I'm not seeing any of it come out. So go like this. Can you see any of it come out when you?
No.
So I'm not. Look, I can't hit it like he does. Ah! Okay. And it might not survive. Sam, we will be cooking with this one, but Sam. We're gonna need to improvise. We're gonna show you first how to store it because because he is stronger than he realizes. Okay, so Wallaby, I think you guys know, is one of my favorite Mylar bags. And one of the things, they've got this new package out that has 3 different sizes in it. And the reason why I would like to do that, because now theoretically, you could put this in like a 5-gallon, but obviously this isn't gonna just fit in here, right? I like these, the bigger ones are 7 mil, and they have the gusseted bottom. So they'll stand up like this, like that used to be able to stand up before Sam met it. So when you go to store this, you can store it in a glass canning jar. You could store it in a plastic peat bottle. We'll leave a link so you can see the post that we did on that. Or you could do it in a Mylar bag. But the thing that I liked about this kit was that it had all kinds of different sizes. So if you want a single serving, say you want to put this in your survival kit, right? Your 72-hour kit or your grab-and-go bag, whatever it is you're going to call it, you could have just a small amount in here, and this one is more like a dinner amount, right? But then this one's kind of a longer-term storage. And in this package, they have the oxygen absorbers, and they're all 400 cc. And we'll use that for this size, and even for this size. We'll use the same size for all of it. Now, if you want to know how long the shelf life is for pancake mix, it's only about 9% moisture. So it's below the 10, so there's no problem at all there storing it. But one of the ingredients that it has in it is baking powder. And I know there's a lot of people who say that baking powder will store indefinitely, but it won't. What'll happen over time is this pancake mix will decrease in its ability to leaven. It won't be able to rise as well. Is it gonna hurt you? No, but you'll get kind of a baking powder kind of taste over time, and it won't taste as good. So personally, flour really has about a 5-year shelf life. You can eat flour that's stored. I mean, we have that whole video. In fact, I'll leave a link to it, where we had really old flour that we were trying. And is it edible? Yes, but sometimes being edible doesn't mean you really want to eat it. Oh no. So, and we'll leave a link to that. But it's super easy to package these. So we're gonna package this up real quick, and Sam's gonna control his big muscles.
I won't,
we'll be
I won't
right
make
back.
the same mistake.
Okay, one of the big mistakes that people make with Mylar is they think these ones with the zip top, that once you zip them, you're done, and you're not. Oxygen can flow through there. And so if you don't have an impulse sealer, this is just my hair straightener, what I used on my hair. I hope I do a better job on here than I did with my hair for this video, but all you have to do is go over the top like this and seal it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work. But the oxygen absorber, there's an oxygen absorber in each one of these, and the reason why is because it will stop the oxidation process, and it will, if there's any critters, any bugs that happen to be in the milled products or the eggs, it will prevent them from hatching, right? And from growing and it'll kill them all. All right, Sam, tell us about how much is in all this.
All right, so luckily we were able to salvage most of that disaster. Obviously we didn't save what fell on the counter and stuff, but this bag right here held 5 pounds. Ow, that's still hot.
Sorry.
It held a little over 5 pounds. Each of these held about 1 1/8 pound. And then these little ones each held 5 ounces. And so ultimately, I just barely had Ben do some math for me, and we salvaged about 9.5 pounds, not including the stuff that we had already put in, or that we put in here. And so we salvaged most of it, luckily, but the Mylar bags definitely will help a lot.
You know what would be really funny? So this is a 7 mil bag, and these are 5 mil bags. Mm-hmm. Wonder which one you could break first.
Comment below if you want to see that video.
That would be kind of funny, huh? Actually, it's pretty expensive, so I'm not sure that I would do that. But do you see how easy it is just to seal this? You want to make sure that it's a good, tight seal, that it's labeled. And then, like I said, your shelf life, your good quality shelf life is going to be about 5 years. Your edible shelf life will be longer than that, much longer than that, but you know, I just wouldn't push it. So now that we've put all this away and Sam has settled down just a little bit, well, let's get making pancakes. Remember how we talked about the homemade mix? Well, we're gonna show you how we're gonna do that. So Sam's gonna start by putting 10 cups of just regular all-purpose white flour in this bowl to make the mix. Now, the recipe that we're gonna use, I love going to garage sales and collecting these older cookbooks, and you can find things like this so cheap, all kinds of different places. But the one that we are going to use today comes from a Make-A-Mix cookery book, and it works really well. And so that's who I give credit to, right? It's back, I think, 1972 or something. This is a really old book and it's been used for a really long time. Now, you notice he's using white flour. Personally, I would not use wheat flour. Now, if you purchase your wheat flour, you're okay making a mix with it. But if you're grinding it fresh, it doesn't have anything in it to stabilize it. It makes it super healthy for you, but that flour is best if you use it within 3 days or put it in the freezer. So if you were gonna use this with whole wheat, you could make it up and then you could store it in the freezer and use it like that. But just know that about the whole wheat. So he's gonna put in 10 cups of white flour, just general all-purpose flour. And the next major ingredient is instant non-fat dry milk. And this is what's making it so expensive right now, because the non-fat dry milk didn't used to be so expensive. He's gonna put in 2.5 cups of that. And this has been in my storage. Okay, you're not supposed to store it this long. You're supposed to store it about 10 years, but this is from 1998 and it's still good. And this is the really expensive part. So if you have some that's in your food storage that it's time to use up, I would absolutely do that rather than buying some of this other stuff. But if you're buying it new, it just might be cheaper to go that way, because according to Jonathan's calculations, which are always correct, it would cost $10.83 to make the same thing that's in these bags. And by the time you added, because this isn't a complete one, you still need to add oil and eggs when you make it. And so it would be a total of about $12.53. So it is more expensive. But if these are the ingredients that you have on hand because you've been storing food for a while and now what you need to do is use it up, by all means do that. He just put in 1/2 cup of sugar, and then he's gonna put in 1/4 cup of baking powder and 2 tablespoons of salt. And then we're just gonna mix this, right? Just gonna mix. I'm not sure how much I trust him. There you go. I trust him totally. That was really funny. We'll harass him about it forever. Okay, once we've got this all mixed, then we're gonna put it in some type of an airtight container. And personally, I reuse things all the time. So this is just a container that had held, what was it? Pretzels, peanut butter pretzels. But now it's actually a really good container. So after we mix this up, we'll make sure that we mix it really well, and we're gonna put it in this, and then it will be shelf stable, and it will store for 10 to 12 weeks on your pantry shelf. Quite frankly, it'll probably store longer than that. But if you are gonna store it longer, you'd wanna drop an oxygen absorber in here so that the oxidation process stops.
All right, so I'm gonna teach you how to take the mix that we just barely put together and make it good, make it ready for the table. So first of all, we're gonna mix our wet ingredients. We're gonna add an egg, 1 cup of water, and then 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. You really could use any oil that you want to.
Butter.
Butter's always good. Personally, I've never done pancakes with olive oil, and I've heard bad things about doing so. I've heard it tastes weird, so anyway.
I like actually coconut oil, but you can see, you can use shelf-stable stuff. And as far as the eggs go, if you go, I did an article or a post, and it has 25 shelf-stable egg substitutes. So if you don't have eggs, there are all kinds of things that you probably have in your pantry that you can replace the eggs in the recipe with. So don't let that stop you.
Yeah. And then to all those wet ingredients, we're gonna add 1.5 cups of our mix. So we're just gonna whip into that, hopefully not spill.
And with pancakes, it's okay for it to be lumpy. We only want to mix it till it's moistened, because we don't want tough pancakes. We want it to be nice and light and fluffy. And so over mixing is actually a really bad thing. If you let the batter sit for like 5 minutes, you're going to get your true texture. Have you ever started with pancakes and then all of a sudden it gets thicker and thicker as you go along, so you have to add more water? So I'd let it sit for a few minutes. I would, but you don't have to.
I don't know, I'm hungry.
You're hungry? All right, whatever you want to do, cowboy.
No.
All right.
All right, so the way that I usually know how it's time to turn them is there will be all these bubbles that come up through the pancake on the griddle. And most of the time in the early stages, those bubbles come through, they pop, and then it closes back up. For me, especially around the outside, you can really tell when it's time, because those bubbles on the outside and getting closer towards the middle will pop, but then they'll stay open. And so usually then it's time to turn it. You get nice golden brown pancakes.
Are you just gonna put maple syrup on it? Like, what are you gonna do with these pancakes?
I mean, you could just put maple syrup on them. My favorite way to do it is to do peanut butter and strawberry jam, get like a PB&J kind of action there.
So we make the most amazing homemade jam, right? Jams and jellies, and that's one of the things that we do, because quite frankly, if you have this in your food storage and this is what you're going to be able to eat, you want to really mix it up. It's super cheap to buy the syrup like this, but this kind of syrup is absolutely devoid of any nutrition or anything good or happy in it, other than it tastes, right?
It tastes
but
good.
You can put all kinds of things in these pancakes. You could chop up an apple and put a little bit of cinnamon, right? You could do any type of fruit in them, but think about this. You could also do, like, let's say, bacon bits and chives, and make it into a savory pancake and serve it along, you know, with eggs on top. But when you look at these pancakes and think, okay, I can make them for 3 cents each, or with this homemade one, I can make them for 5 cents each. That's some really incredibly cheap food, as the college student knows, right?
Yeah. It's poor starving college student approved. And I think one of my favorite things that I've done, especially when I mentioned I was doing some heavier training, was you just take a scoop of your whey protein powder and put it in there. And it mixes really well. You gotta have some extra water. And it does dry it out just a little bit, but it's a great option, especially if you have something like this to put on top of it. So,
or like real maple syrup.
Or real maple syrup.
I mean, it's so much more expensive, and this is frugal friendly foods, right? So we're not really talking about the more expensive stuff. But one of the other things, like when Sam was growing up, we had a lot of kids and not very much money. And so I'd even take the leftover waffles or pancakes from breakfast, and I would use them as bread. And I would put like peanut butter and jelly in between them, or sometimes frosting or Nutella. And so they were like, home lunch, yeah. But we don't want these to go to waste. You can sprinkle them with cinnamon and sugar and actually roll them up. These are kind of thick, but you can make them thinner and then make them so that you could just roll up different things in them, whether that's make it, you know, into a sandwich like turkey or anything that you want to. You could actually spread like a little layer of cream cheese and some jelly on it and roll those up. All kinds of things that, okay, this is a pretty cheap lunch, right? If you just spread it with some peanut butter and jelly, 3 cents a piece or 5 cents a piece, whatever, it can go a long way. And when you're hungry and you're really trying to stretch those dollars, pancakes just might be the answer. I mean, not really, because I'm gluten intolerant, so they're not the answer for me. Well, depends on what I put in the pancakes, right? Buckwheat pancakes and oats, you can put in different grains in these, right? And make a huge variety. We talked about this before, but if you were to take this mix and add like 1/4 either a vegetable flour or a bean flour, suddenly you completely change the nutritional content in it. Okay, these are freeze-dried greens from my garden, and I just stuck them in my freeze dryer and then I ground them and I put them either in my smoothies, or you can add a tablespoon or two to the batter and suddenly you've got some vegetables in here, right? And it doesn't change the taste. It changes the color a little bit, but not the taste. Now, these are freeze-dried, but for years I've done it just by drying them, and greens will dry very easily. You don't have to have a dehydrator. I used to actually put them in the van when it was parked outside in the summertime, and within a day or two, I'd crack the window just a little bit so that there's a little bit of ventilation. Within a day or two, they're really crispy, and you just crumble them up or blend them and put them in a jar like this. If you can use an oxygen absorber, they'll stay good longer. But if you're just working through them really fast, you really don't need that. But man, the possibilities are endless.
All right, so as you can see, I did not make these as 4-inch pancakes. So they're not gonna be the 3 cents a piece. But a way that I learned that you can tell if they're done is you just take your spatula and you poke a little hole and you do a little looking, and if it's not battery on the inside, then it's done. That's the really nice thing about cooking on a lower heat. You can see these are a lot prettier than these are. They did take longer, but they're gonna be thicker and fluffier, and that lower heat allows you to do that. All right, so Mom said that we needed to do a pancake taste test, so a pancake taste test we will do. So the first stack, this is the homemade pancake mix. What I've done, I've just taken your run-of-the-mill, you know, imitation maple syrup. And they're very good. And just from my experience, these do taste a lot fresher and a lot more natural than the bagged mix will. But you do miss out on a little bit of the fluff factor, so. Anyway, moving on to my personal expertise, the bagged mix. And so these are noticeably fluffier, but they almost seem rubbery. I think that has to do with the fact that, well, it came from a bagged mix. But they are a lot fluffier. I don't even know what else to say. It's a huge part of my my growing up.
So what is your favorite? If you could choose either one, what would you choose?
All right, so if I could pick one of these, I know this is gonna shock my mom. I know this is gonna shock myself, but I think I'm gonna take the fresh mix because I have more control over what I can put into the mix. You know, if I wanted to do whole wheat flour, if I wanted to, like if I had somebody that needed to go gluten-free, let's say we could put oat flour in it. And not only that, it does taste a lot fresher, but that doesn't mean, me personally, I'm gonna abandon these because so much nostalgia.
Okay, you wanna hear something really funny? Sam was finishing his pancakes and he said, "Mom, you freaking ruined pancakes for me forever." Like, huh? He goes, "Because I always like the mix, but the new ones that you made are so good, the fresh ones." So just know that the fresh is better, right? When you put the fresh eggs in there and you use just the basic ingredients without all the preservatives, it does taste better. It's not cheaper, but oh, it's just so much better. And I think it's better for you. But so now we're gonna talk about sourdough pancakes, which is my favorite because that's something that I can eat. So this is a sourdough start, and it's nice and bubbly. When I refreshed it, it was right here where this rubber band is. And what I do is I take about a cup of start, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And to refresh the start, I will just put more flour and water in it, and then I will let it set, and then it just perpetuates, right? One of the reasons why I can have this is because the sourdough is really good at digesting the gluten, and for me, not for everyone, but for me, it makes it so that my body can handle the flour. So this is really good with, I use in my recipe, a half a cup of milk. This happens to be almond milk, but you could use any type of liquid that you want. And I have 1 egg and 3 tablespoons of oil. And I always mix my wet ingredients first. And I want to incorporate that sourdough start in here really well. And the honey would go with the wet ingredients. You can totally use sugar, or you could skip this altogether. You don't have to use a sweetener in it, but I'm kind of fond of it. So I like just that little bit of honey that's in here. And part of it is because I don't drench mine in syrup. And then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. Now the baking soda, what it does is it just helps give the natural yeast that little bit of extra oomph. You could just use natural yeast and let this set and let it get bubbly again, but I prefer to do this. And then this is just oats, right? I just put them in my little Vitamix and took a cup of oats and made some oat flour. And you know how Sam's pancakes were, some of them were super thick? I never make mine that thick. But everybody has their personal preference, how thin they like their batter for the pancakes. So you just add more liquid if you like it thinner than what I do. And this will set up over a few minutes. It's gonna get a little bit thicker because those oats are gonna absorb the moisture. And it'll be a little bit thicker, but this looks really good. Now, you could stop here and totally make pancakes, but I wanna help you get creative. So if you have an apple that's going soft in the fridge, or any type of fruit or applesauce or something, you could add some to that. I think it's great, especially with the sourdough, to add a little bit of spice, because the cinnamon will make it so that the sourdough taste isn't quite as prominent. I mean, seriously, you could put just about anything in these pancakes. And remember, it's still inexpensive. I don't know exactly how much the natural yeast pancakes are, because it's hard to calculate that. Because I bought the wheat years ago when wheat was, super, super cheap. If you're buying wheat today, that price is going to be a lot more expensive, and so it's different. So we'll let this sit for just a couple minutes, and we'll be right back and put them on this hot griddle. These look so pretty. And it's absolutely delicious. I love that little bit of apple in there. And when I had all my kids at home, when I'm making pancakes and waffles and things for breakfast, because that was such a cheap way to feed our family, that's one of the things that I take advantage of. If I had leftovers of, say, applesauce or fruit that was going bad, or a banana, anything where it just wasn't enough or it was starting to turn, I would just blend it up and put it in there. And that way, I'm using that nutrition for my family, I'm saving money, and nothing is going to waste. So I hope you like this about the pancakes. They seriously are an incredibly economical food to make sure that you're fed when there isn't a lot of resources around. And when you're using your food storage, they can completely be made out of shelf-stable ingredients. So for the question of the day, what is your favorite way to make pancakes? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.